in the south, caring and quits in the west, and all up in the north. So when we're going from Andy Williams will move us forward, forward, forward. Not a lot, but will move us forward, forward, forward. Devin Andrews will move us forward, forward, forward. And that's Andrews will move us forward, forward, forward. Deacon Mitchell will move us forward, forward, forward. Brother Joseph will move us forward, forward, forward. Karen James will move us forward, forward, forward. Quincy Britton will move us forward, forward, forward. Joseph Ander will move us forward, forward. We tired. But people tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. The youths them tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. Canadians tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. So we moving forward, forward, forward. Move the country forward, forward, forward. NDC forward, forward, forward. Oh, we go way forward, forward, forward. Mommy, oh mama, right? Oh mama, flavors that we need in one jar. I say flavor. Best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Island taste and spicy. Best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Garlic oil and vegan pesto. I telling you that's the way to go. Hot sauce on the green seasoning. Flavors that will have your body. Strictly organic, so it's healthy. That will make your food so tasty. Vitamin D, calcium and iron. Number one seasoning on the island. Five-side flavors. Please come 697-40.
Don't nobody care about us, and that's why I don't vote. Voted for Obama back in 2012, I remember that's when I had hope. He was saying, yes, we can, and everybody got less food stamps. And when I turned 21, I was still broke, I'd never vote again. I don't think I ever had a president make my life better. Did it all on my own, ain't no politician ever do a nice gesture. I don't even know the man's name, I ain't never seen her one time ever. Tell me how she gonna help the city. What I'm supposed to do, write letters? What I'm supposed to do, blame Trump? He ain't never really gave a Ain't nobody raised minimum wage. None of these jobs pay enough. I think they just wanna keep us broke, cause they ain't putting nothing in place for us. This how all my people feel, but we gotta learn. We complained enough, let me change it up. Everything I just said, everybody I know think the same way. See, they don't wanna see us vote, and we never do, so we see the same thing. But all our votes really do count, and they'll never really let it show. So now I'm finna break it down, cause if I don't, you would probably never know. First thing first, you know back in middle school when they taught us, it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor or the governor and the president. Now none of those 3 people make no laws, they just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. So when the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch, yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do, okay?
Yeah, Brother John says he's having difficulty. His system froze up temporarily there.
We can take it again.
Folks, we
I'm
had a
tired,
little
I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, and we can take it again. So we're moving forward, forward, forward. Move the country forward, forward, forward. With NDC forward.
Yeah, I don't know, in 1,000 years, man.
Oh, we go way forward, forward, forward. Too long. It's lies and mama guys. Too long. Empty promises in we eyes. Too long. You ignoring the people cries. Too long. All your days since 1995 and you don't do nothing. Only when election time coming, that's when poor people does get something. From all that bitch and passport you selling, them actions they telling. All you feel that grenade and speaking. It's time to call off the winning. We don't need that this time, it ain't working. Because we tired and we tired and we tired and we tired and we can't take it again. For people tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. The youths them tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. Canadians tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. So we're moving forward, forward, forward. Move the country forward, forward, forward. With NDC forward, forward, forward. Oh, we go way forward, forward, forward. Time for all you to rest. We want a team that is young and fresh. We want to bring out the best. So it's time for all you to press. Pension have to restore. Public sovereignty prominent. Agriculture go grow. Carry go get government. Local landing and digging in south. Caring and quits in the west. And all up up in the north. So where we going from here? Andy Williams will move us forward, forward, forward. Jonathan Naquet will move us forward, forward, forward. Kevin Andrews will move forward, forward, forward. Lennox Andrews will move us forward, forward, forward. Deacon Mitchell will move us forward, forward, forward. Claudette Joseph will move us forward, forward, forward. Karen James will move us forward, forward, forward. Quincy Britton will move us forward, forward, forward. Joseph Andal will move us forward, forward. We tired. The people tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. The youths them tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. Canadians tired and they tired and they tired and they tired and they can't take it again. So we moving forward, forward, forward. Move the country forward, forward, forward. With NDC forward, forward, forward. How we going forward, forward, forward.
High style flavor. Grenada Ileja, Southern Sydney. Grenada Ileja, Southern Sydney. Mami oh mama, high style flavors from the corner. Mami oh mama, flavors of Grenada in wonder. High style flavor. Best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Island taste and spices. Best I say, the best I say, the best I say. Garlic oil and vegan pesto. I telling you that's the way to go. Hot sauce on the green seasoning. Flavor that will have your body. Strictly organic so it's healthy. That will make your food so tasty. Vitamin D, calcium and iron. #1 seasoning on the island. Spice Style Flavors. Please contact us at 347-697-40.
Don't nobody care about us, and that's why I don't vote. Voted for Obama back in 2012. I remember that's when I had hope. He was saying, yes, we can. And everybody got less food stamps. And when I turned 21, I was still broke. I'd never vote again. I don't think I ever had a president make my life better. Did it all on my own. Ain't no politician ever do a nice gesture. I don't even know the man's name. I ain't never seen her one time ever. Tell me how she gonna help the city. What I'm supposed to do, write letters? What I'm supposed to do, blame Trump? He ain't never really gave a ain't nobody raised minimum wage. None of these jobs pay enough. I think they just wanna keep us broke, cause they ain't putting none in place for us. This how all my people feel, but we gotta learn. We complained enough, let me change it up. Everything I just said, everybody I know think the same way. See, they don't wanna see us vote, and we never do, so we see the same thing. But all our votes really do count, and they'll never really let it show. So now I'm finna break it down, cause if I don't, you would probably never know. First thing first, you know back in middle school when they taught us, it was 3 branches of the government. We forgot it when we got older. It's the judicial, the legislative, and executive. But all we know is the executive. That's the mayor or the governor and the president. Now none of those 3 people make no laws, they just be checking them. The laws come to their desk and all they do is say no or yes to it. When the news station tried to tell us that Barack Obama couldn't put us on, we was all salty at Obama when it was the Congress members all along. We gotta focus on the legislative branch, yeah, they the ones that make the laws. Yeah, they the ones write how much food stamp money you get on the card. But when people that wanted to help us wanted the job, I know they probably lost. Cause we ain't even know their name, we ain't know their face, we ain't know it all. So the Congress or the State House, that's legislative, they make laws. So what we want from the president is what they do. Okay, y'all? See, their election every 2 years.
Good evening. Are you hearing me clearly? Refill Paul, Val, Delbert.
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Let me apologize. I don't know. That's the first time in a long time we had everything go frozen on my end. I hear music, but I can't see nothing, can't touch nothing. I just shut the system right down and start all over again. So I'm getting a loud feedback from somebody, very loud. Let me see who it is. Yeah, that's from Raphael Paul. It's having rain in St. Max, or it should be sunny and bright.
No, there's no rain.
Okay.
It's sunshine, brilliant sunshine out there now.
All right.
No. But John, he's showing off with his sea, the Caribbean Sea breaking in his background. You know? Trying to make us all jealous.
Yes, actually, the sea is right at the back of the building there.
Oh, so that's what I'm hearing there. Okay. Yeah, that's what the wave breaking there. All right. So I'm gonna hand over to you, Pablo. Let me go live and I'll hand over everything to you. All right.
John, send out the link, okay?
Where you streaming?
I'm going on Facebook and on YouTube.
Okay.
Let me go to YouTube. So everybody just mute the mics for now, and let me go. Yeah. And I'll make you co-host Pablo, so you can control from your end the narrative on that end. All right. So let me do the start button here. You say yes. Okay. Oh man, I lose everything. Ay. I lost that, so I have to go back to that. Oh my God. Okay, I still have it. Okay, that's cool. Nice. Okay, Pablo, you live? Go ahead. You're now live, Pablo.
He has to unmute himself.
Yeah, you have to unmute, yeah.
Hi, Val, good evening.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Oh my God, every time I see you, look younger and younger. You look amazing.
You see that all the time.
I'm following you.
You
Yeah.
have to bottle the thing and sell it, man.
You see, all the time we are live here and say nothing, or as we go live, you understand? Anyway.
Like St. Max and St. Patrick's people.
Yes.
Yes, a pleasant good afternoon to my fellow panelists, Sister Val, Brother Delbert, and Brother John, for joining, accepting my invitation for us to have this conversation this afternoon. My name is Raphael Paul Pablo, and I'm no stranger to the GEM FM platform. I used to be here very regular at one point in time, and along with Brother Delbert and Brother John, and we've had Sister Val on many occasions. She's been here. So it's a team that we're used to having these kinds of sessions on GEM FM. And GEM FM is that entity that really focuses on having some addressing some very essential issues, especially issues relating to or issues of great significance to the national development agenda of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, as our recently elected Prime Minister like to say, Petit Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. And we're speaking about not just a development agenda right now, a transformation agenda. And in keeping with this whole conversation of transformation, there is an issue that we give voice to from time to time. I mean, many people you will hear us make reference to our national heroes. And significantly so, because heroes or saviors is something that is in the psyche of the human being, generally speaking, and the Grenadians to a great extent. Because I say it's part of the psyche, because as a people who's generally driven by the doctrines of biblical persuasions, that kind of philosophy and these kinds of precepts are what determines our hero or savior mindset. So, and you find in different cultures where people are looking, we always tend to be looking to someone or some group of people to take us out of sticky situations or challenging situations, to lead the way. Because oftentimes in the absence of a leader with vision and with the tenacity to challenge whatever the stumbling block might be, the people as a mass tend not to have the will or the fortitude to face those challenges. And we've seen it happen. The people who were working on the plantation just post-slavery and during that period of colonialism, that period of colonial rule, they did not have it in themselves to stand up to the plantocracy. And it wasn't until Sir Eric Matthew Gary came that he became more or less the savior of the people. And I just used that example so that we can begin to have an appreciation of what really drives that hero mindset, that savior mindset that we're known for. That's part of that our psyche as a Caribbean people, and generally part of the psyche of humans. And with that being said, it brings to the fore the fact that we speak to and refer to our national heroes. You always hear references being made to our national heroes and the need for us to recognize our heroes. The thing about it is, we have never sought to really define national heroes and who qualifies for the status of national heroes. So this session here this evening sets out to commence the conversation about that. And it is anticipated that there are going to be similar conversations from this platform with other participants, other Grenadians at home and in the diaspora, where we are going to be discussing that issue. And I would hope and I expect that it would become a conversation among other nationals, so we can get to the point, like is the case in Barbados, like is the case in Jamaica, like is the case in Trinidad, like is the case in the Bahamas and other places, where we have set all the parameters as to how we define a national hero, who qualifies for the status of national hero, and all of the other elements that has to go into the establishment of some kind of institutionalization of our national heroes conversation. So we can have, whether it's a National Heroes Day or a week of celebration of national heroes, whatever the outcome is going to be. And with that being said, let's get into the conversation. Yeah, because I just gave that as by way of orientation, so that our viewers, our listeners, those joining us would have a sense of the background and the essence of why we are here having this conversation this afternoon. So that being the case, I did call out different people's names and so, but I am now going to allow for the other people on the platform, on the panel, to say something about themselves and to give their perspective as to what is or who is a national hero. How do we define the definition of what is a national hero or who is a national hero? Okay, so we'll start with the lady amongst us. Yeah, we'll start with the lady. Ladies first. We'll give the lady the opportunity to lead off on this one.
Well, good afternoon to you, Raphael, our special host, Pablo, as we know him.
Pablo.
Pablo, and I know you love the name Pablo. I'm going to come back to you.
People call me Pablo more than anything else, anyway.
I know, and that's a name I know more. I know your former name is Paul, but it's Pablo.
Pablo, yeah.
Good afternoon to Delbert Batiste, comrade, long-standing, from the north, Chantimel, I think it is, the good old Chantimel. And to my dear brother, friend, comrade, and whatever other name he chooses to call himself and our relationship, John. I was born in the same village like him, although I was moved out of that village of Paradise, the beloved Paradise, early, but I've known his family since then, since that time of childhood. And I really commend him for, I look at John sometimes and I said, he has such tenacity. He has such tenacity. I think I need to learn some from him because he to have started this program and persisted with it no matter what, is something that is a characteristic, is a talent, is a gift that he has, plus his convictions that allows him to continue no matter what. So special thanks and hail to you, John, for doing this. And I could see it going on. I have seen how the program has grown over the years. It's since I've been associated with it, and I expect it to do even more in the future. But back to you, Paula. I know, Pablo, I know you are a very humble person. From all the years that I've known you, almost hardly talking. I've seen you in many workshops over the time with Gren Coda and wherever else in the development field in Grenada. And he's always there, just, quietly, head down, plodding along. But I've also admired his deep conviction and perseverance, no matter what. You could almost not tell what he's thinking also. But whenever he opens his mouth, you can tell the depth of his thought and his and character, especially coming from St. Mark's, that tends to be, what should I say? I don't want to say ignored but forgotten, but Pablo has been there no matter what, his leather craft, his working in non-profit sector. And I'm sure he's blushing because he kind of skirts away from any recognition.
Yes.
But, I think it's important to recognize the contributions that people have made. I know Delbert from the time of the revolution, not so much in recent years, but I know he too has made his contribution. I can't speak to it as much as I can speak to John and Pablo. But as we are on the topic, on this particular topic, I start with comments about our comrades, our friends who have, our brethren, who have contributed to nation building in significant ways and who very often go unrecognized. Yes, in the way that we do things home. And hopefully with time will become much more conversant with the practice and the habit of recognizing our own and giving them their due. Having said that, I pivot to just a universal definition, as Pablo made the comment about definition, how we define it. A universal definition first, because then we have to make that relevant for Grenada or applicable to Grenada. What is a national hero? And I use the one that says, as a point of reference from Worldview, a national hero is a person who makes significant contributions to the development of society, is admired for any of a number of qualities, including courage and outstanding achievement. The national hero is also seen as a representative of the society as a whole. And I should say the best of society, not just of society, because it could be representing negative things about society. And do we consider those persons to be heroes? We have to factor that in too, but the best of what our society has to offer. Often a national hero has qualities that make him stand out, such as commitment, self-sacrifice, and dedication to national ideals. He or she generally demonstrates leadership qualities and ethical behavior, showing love for his or her country. The national hero is one who has enriched the lives of others through his or her contributions to society and may be recognized among his peers or professional organizations. So that's a kind of very generic, universal definition of a national hero. How does it apply to us? Is, I guess, what Pablo is urging and exhorting us to start the conversation about. Because maybe a national hero for Barbados may not be the same. We would have similar qualities and characteristics, but they may not be an exact fit to what a Grenadian might refer to as a national hero or think is a national hero. And I want to pose another question, just a question for the time being, which I think is key. When and how does a person who contributes to the country or to nation building cross the bar from just being a nation builder or community builder to becoming a national hero? So I want to pose that question too for us to think about and for our audience. By the way, my apologies to all those who have joined us on social media, to welcome you to the program and to ask you two to think about it, because the conversation, we are not the only keepers of the knowledge around this. And I want to thank Pablo for starting or pushing the conversation, not starting because maybe other people are talking about it, but for really pulling the conversation into the front burner for this, using this platform, and I'm sure other platforms will be used eventually. So what it is, what's the bar above which people shift from being nation builders to being national heroes? You have to unmute, Pablo.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Val. Very incisive and very thoughtful. You know, food for thought. You have presented. You've started us off in a direction that we have to put on our thinking caps right now. Brother Delbert, I know you will be as equally profound in your utterances.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Well, let's say I 100%. Good evening. I 100% concur with Val's definition. And this is something that I have been thinking about for a long time. And we have had conversation on this platform about that and other issues in terms of, as still a very young nation, tell the world who we are in terms of who we elevate to that status and the people that we emulate. And it is a very weighty subject, and I think it is especially important at this period in our history, given all that has happened to us and what has happened in the world very recently with the I saw conversations about that during the time of the recent death of the Queen. And one of the things that, okay, so small nations like us, and not just small nations, but countries as a whole, you can grow a country economically, you can make advancements in social development and other areas that bring tangible benefits to people. But if you fail to develop the sort of emotional intelligence that helps push a nation forward, then in some ways you are lacking. And I think starting this conversation about beginning to define or setting up some criterias, and like Sister Val said, we are having the conversation here, but I've seen sort of tidbits of that conversation happening elsewhere. So it's a wonderful thing that our people are beginning to think about that. And how do we set up some well-established criteria for who ascends to that to the highest echelons, all right? And Val posed a really, really important question, because there are lots of people who have done remarkable things at their community, at their village, at their parish level. What is the standard when you move from just being a really good citizen, from a helpful citizen, from somebody who cares probably deeply about his or her immediate surrounding? How do you move from there to become a national hero? And I think over the next couple of weeks or months, hopefully that question will be answered, and there'll be some kind of national consensus and some kind of national movement in terms of us defining who should be in that position. Because it would be really, really important, because now if you ask our folks, who is a national hero in Grenada, everybody has their own take, right? All right, so so it would be more important for us to establish the criteria, for us to set certain standards, okay? And maybe we have to look at this thing in very broad terms. So it can't just be about who are going to be our national heroes, how that's going to be rolled out. We probably have to start with set up a whole criteria for a series of award that not only seeks to emulate or the people who have done remarkably well and have contributed greatly to our progress, but also to tell their story, because often you hear somebody's name just in passing, and we don't understand the story behind their struggles, behind their successes. Sometimes national heroes fail a lot of times before they succeed, right? You know, sometimes there are more important lessons in our failures than we learn from our great successes. So my hope is that this would be part of a series of conversations, and that somehow we'll get to broaden it, bring people of diverse opinion. I do have to say though, that all the conversations I have seen so far has pretty much not been unanimous, but it's been pointing in a very similar direction. So what that tells me is that there are enough of us in the Grenadian community who understands or has an appreciation for what that is and how important it is for us as a young nation. And we're about 2 years away from being half a century of independence. And this is a great, great, great time to start that conversation. Hopefully, we would get buy-in from other organizations and other people. And eventually, we know in small countries like Grenada, government plays a sort of oversized role in the lives of our people. So there's something that hopefully we can get buy-in from the current administration, both in terms of the ruling party and the party in opposition, because both form the government of the day, and that and other well-interested parties, and we can hopefully move towards setting up some kind of framework where the discussions can be had in terms of how we move forward. But Pablo, I want to congratulate you. I mean, you bring weighty topics to the table, point blank. So when you call me about something, it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I have to say yes, because for me, it's not just about expressing an opinion, it's also about learning, okay? And that's key for me. And you know, the point Val was making earlier on about John, you know, sometimes I'm tired on Friday nights and I'm driving in from work, or sometimes I may have just gotten in and I'm not, you know, don't have the energy, and he would call and say, bro, we have a topic that we need to discuss. And I don't know what it is about these kind of forums and this kind of exchanges. And I have to find the energy to join on. And that happened this morning, you know. He called me and said, listen, there's a young lady on here. You have to come on right now. I don't care what you're doing. Drop whatever you're doing and get it. So yeah, you know, oftentimes we take for granted the contribution our friends make, the things that they do that help advance the debate, help advance progressive and beneficial ideas, and we don't show our gratitude to them. And I'm very pleased that Val chose to do that on this occasion, and I join with her wholeheartedly.
Thank you very much for that, Brother Delbert. And we're moving straight on into Brother John. Brother John, we got to bring you in here right now with all the kudos that you've received from Sister Val this afternoon, you know, for the great work that you've started, the tenacity that you have been demonstrating over the years, you know. And you know what come to mind? I was in a conversation with a young man who teaches this morning, and he was speaking about that. When things seemed so dark for the NDC after 2 losses, successive loss at the poll, 15-0, and there were just some people who didn't give up, who stuck with the NDC through thick and thin. And here we have, as a consequence of that, we've been able to unearth someone like Deacon Mitchell to take on the leadership of the party and to be the hero of the day, essentially.
I like that word, Pablo. I really like that word. I like that word. I like that word. I like your usage of that word.
Oh, that word.
Which word?
On
Yes. Yeah, we just moved about, you know. So, Brother John, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Well.
Just a minute.
All right. Let me mute Pablo for a minute there. Okay. Yes. Good evening again. I want to thank all of you, because there's no me and there's no I in team, you know. And I take this thing seriously. And like Val says, and I wrote this week on a piece that I love to have committed people and not just loyal people, because people could shift their loyalty anytime. So I always want committed and passionate people as I am. And I think one of the hallmark of a leader is associating himself with people of his level and above. And I find myself in that space of associating myself with people my level and above. And I should say that because Val, Delbert, Raphael lately, who become part of GEM FM, and I had admired his work and his ethics. He even filled in for me when I had the COVID. Again, that's when you have people who can identify among you and say, hey, fill in for me. I know they could do a good job or even better than you have done it. And I want to thank Rafael Pablo for that. Delbert, I could call up and they'll say, host that show for me. I could call Val, have a show I want to put together. Can we put that together? And the thing about leadership is identifying people that could do what you do and even do it better. Right? And also making leaders out of followers. And I think we are on a good trend here. We have touched a lot of things, and over the years, 6 years now since I've been doing this, I'm not in a hurry. I'm building not a fall run, but a skyscraper, and I'm starting from the bottom to the top. My commitment here is not just about me, but the generation to come, and trying to lead the field, so to speak, to place people and pull from them, draw from them the gifts and the talent that they came here with. So for me, it's making it paving the road, opening new roads, and making different pathways for people to come into here, Gem FM, and explore and to move up the ladder. So I want to thank Pablo again. And when he first came to Gem FM as a panelist, I identified something special about him. Like Val spoke to that, and Delbert spoke to that. There is something special about Pablo when he enters a room and he begins to speak. It transformed everything. And I saw that, I felt it when he was recommended to me. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know if he was in radio before, but I just thought, well, wow. And one evening I was driving home from work, and someone called Pablo and give him his own show. And I came, and on the way, I just pick up the phone and I call Pablo and ask him, I said, Pablo, I want to give you a show. I want to do so. Anything you want to talk about, just talk about it. I want to just go ahead and do something. Not knowing nothing about Pablo in depth, I didn't investigate. Normally, investigate people I call and ask about the person. I didn't know none of that. I just tell him, based on what I saw before, I thought Pablo was the ideal person to have a show on Gem FM. So it was the comfort zone. He did almost a year and a half of the comfort zone. This show is a special comfort zone, and you see on the headline, it's a comfort zone special today. So it's not a talking point show, it's not a Caribbean Connection show, it's a comfort zone special today, Pablo. So again, I'm so happy that you have led the field in this and other program that you have brought on this radio station. And this one to me is going to be a hallmark for all others, because we talk about a national hero here, and I want to go more into what Val has said, because she have laid the foundation to put the icing on top of that cake now. We have come to that point where we're talking about a national hero. We see what happened with the Sparrow over the summer, about the Mighty Sparrow and his contribution. Why is he and why not the other person? We have to have guidelines, and clearly so by us, our people of Grenada, how and who should be and what is the qualification. I think what we are looking at now, because we can identify a number of people who probably made contribution, who laid the foundation, who have gone through the bitter part, who have taken the whip on their backs to make Grenada what it is today. Some of them die in the process, some die from old age or from disease, but we have a lot of people in Grenada, past and present, that could be identified as national heroes, as treasures of our people. So today, I hope that this discussion wouldn't just stop here, but be the beginning of many more until we find a medium where we can use as a marker, like many other countries, Jamaica, Barbados, St. Vincent. And there is not a one size fits all. They may have their way of doing their thing and why they want to identify one person as such. And we may have to have our own tailor-made to our Grenadian people. So let us have the discussion, and I welcome it right here on Gem FM again. Gem FM always leading the field in those big ideas. Thank you very much, Pablo. You could unmute. Yeah, you have
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother John. And you've taken us to the point where, yes, we've had a very profound definition from Sister Val as to what really is, a definition of a national hero. And that is a working definition that can be tailored to different situations. It raises the question, and I may have mentioned it briefly in the orientation. It raises the question though, why do we need national heroes? What's the essence really of national heroes? What's the significance of having a national heroes? How would identifying or setting up a mechanism to identify and to bring recognition to our national heroes, how does it impact, or what is the essence of it to our overall national development agenda? And in this case here, as we speak in transformation, to our transformation agenda. Delbert?
Hello?
Yeah?
Getting a lot of feedback, probably.
You're getting a lot? Oh, okay.
So you wanted me to respond to that?
Yeah, where do we, the real essence of national heroes? Why do we need national heroes? Where does the whole concept and that need, where does it fit into our effort, our development thrust? And seeing that we're speaking about transformation, what kind of, what's the significance of this whole discourse and this whole idea of national heroes to all of what we're trying to accomplish? Yeah.
I'm going to try and take this at a very granular level.
Yeah.
So, as Val mentioned earlier on, I grew up in a village called Chantemelle, all right? It was pre my time by all, whether it's true legend or, well, actually, it was a terrible place. Let's put it that way. It was a terrible place. And I think starting a little before my generation, there were a group of people who were probably now in their mid-70s or late 60s that began to transform the village. And that transformation was led by a group of women who, unfortunately, they have all gone on at this point in time. But they refuse to accept the status quo. And most of the women who were part of that, it was a sort of loose group, came from the better or well-off families in the village. And what they decided was that, great, we are going to make sure our children get educated. But it was a poor village. And they decided also that if there was another child in the village who needed help, who was showing great promise, that we were going to help that child too. So they came together, and one would buy the uniform, one would buy the books, one would provide the meals for the breakfast in the morning or their lunch to go to school. And this happened. And then I remember when my very earliest years in Chantemelle RC school, we had our first principal who was from the village. And that was a huge thing for the village. There were guys who had already left school and came back to the primary school because now this gentleman that they had known in the village became principal. And they now on their best behavior because they had the deepest regards for him. And about a year after that, there was a group of graduates from McDonald College primarily, and I think St. Joseph Convent in Grenville. of young people from the village who had gone on and done exceedingly well in school and came back now and were teachers in the school. So a few years before that now, Chandimal had the bad boys, and guys like me were thinking, well, you know, I can grow up to be a bad boy too. I mean, there was no way my parents was going to allow it, but I can think it, right? But here we had this transformation now in the school where we saw people who we knew right there in the village. Mr. George Ferguson, Mr. Gordon Alexis, Miss Linda Phillip, Miss Esther Thomas, Miss Teresa Thomas, Miss Victoria Phillip at the time, now she's St. John. There was just a host of them. They all became teachers. And all of a sudden, we was like, I can grow up to be a teacher too. I can grow up to make something out of my life. All right. So this was no longer an abstract idea for us. We saw this thing materializing right before our eyes. And I say this, all this to say that what the national hero does, this is what our local heroes did for us at that village level. What the national hero does for the country is lift our spirit and tell us that even things that we think right now are not possible, that it is. And in some ways, they give us a roadmap or a ladder that they have already started building. So we no longer have to start at the bottom. We are now starting where they left off. But the great thing, for me, the most remarkable thing the national hero sort of status does, it tells you that big things are possible, that you can be greater than yourself, and that the actual best gift is your gift to humanity, where you do things for people, whether you know them or not, and expect nothing in return. That's what the national hero does. Anybody who becomes a national hero doesn't set out to be a national hero. What they set out to do is to change people's lives, is to make the world around them better. And I think if we can put together, again, part of that conversation and finally get to that point where we can name some national heroes, whether it's 1, 2, 10, 12, and this becomes an annual event, what it's going to do, it's going to be a great vehicle to inform our young people, in particular, of the struggles that went on, some things that they have no idea about. And Val would probably relate to that story very well. I was visiting Grenada in 2012, I think, or 10, somewhere around there. And I went into the Marketing and National Import Board and wanted to get some fruits. And it was really poor quality, and I was disappointed. And I took the opportunity to say something to the manager, and she agreed with me, and she said, you know, she's doing her best, you know. And on my way out, I said, do you understand how the marketing board came into being? And she had been with the organization for more than a decade, the better part of two decades, right? And she had no idea about the history of the organization, how it came into being. And I spent another few minutes just telling her how it came into being and what was the thinking behind it. And she said, please, I beg you, before you leave, come back and speak to my staff. Just give them 15 minutes. And I said, I don't know if I can. She said, you have to, you absolutely have to. She said, because I never knew that. And here I am. I started, you know, at the very bottom. Now I'm a manager of the second, you know, biggest location in Grenada, and I know nothing about that. And we have to, as we grow as a young nation, we must have a sense of our history. And for me, like I said, what the national hero does is lift our spirit, show us where we came from, sort of lay out the path to further development, not just in terms of the tangibles, but in terms of how you grow as a nation emotionally, you grow in terms of your spiritual growth, in how you solve problems, because like I said earlier, a lot of times people who attain that status would have had failures in their life, but they never gave up. They kept forging ahead, and they kept building relationships with people who can help them. My mom told me something once, and that was just before she passed away. She said that the folks around here think that I give and give and give. She said what they don't know is that I get more out of them than I can ever give of myself. And I had to just take a step back because, yeah, you love your mom and thing, but you don't expect anything big and deep and profound coming from her because this is somebody you've known all your life. And I had to sit back, and then, all of a sudden I had to look at my mom, not just as my mom, but as this deep thinking intellectual. And that quote would have stayed with me over the years. So I think that the whole question of how do we show respect, honor to our people who made the sacrifice that enabled us to be where we are, and hopefully where we will get, 5, 10, 20 years down the road. We definitely need to recognize them. Our people, we need to tell the world about them, because so many times, right, the outside world looks at us like we're not capable of managing ourselves, like we're not capable of defining what's best for us, and bringing the whole question of a national hero debate to the table right now would send that message that these are people who have steadily made progress in their lives, and that they would continue to grow once the platform is there that encourages them. And that goes into your point, Pablo, about part of that whole transformation agenda.
Definitely so, Brother Delbert. And the points that you made there really raises the issue as to, okay, Sister Val mentioned earlier on about the significance of positive contributions to the growth and development of the society, and that the national hero really embodies or is representative of all of us. And we're just discussing the issue of why are national heroes important. And you made a very salient point as to the impact of somebody from your community becoming the principal of the school, and how it impacted the lives of others, and how it caused them to see prospects for themselves, that was not visible to them previously. And it really brings to the fore a comment I came across which says, national heroes provide a constant guiding light to what a country's citizens should aspire to be. Speaking of aspirations, Brother John, would there have been any individuals, seeing as the opening comments that were made by Sister Val, having known you from then, and what you have mushroomed into and keep growing into during this dispensation, would there have been any nurturing icons or individuals that would have given you the kind of drive and the kind of focus that really drives you presently?
thank you again, Pablo. There's so many people that have contributed to what I'm doing, and let me recognize the point that what I'm doing here was a joint effort. My late wife had a vision of wanting to be on a write-on magazine. I always like writing. I remember one time I told a teacher of mine, Ms. Duncan, I want to write a book about my life thus far. And she said, not because you're bossing bush under your chin, you're man here to write your story, you know? And I just shook it off and I went about my business. But my late wife and I always had an app for business, and we have done many different things in Grenada to help ourselves. She wanted to do this. She talked about magazine. I was teaching at the time. I said, we could do this, you know? Being the person I am, I always have something to work with, always think of something I could do. And she was really adamant about having it done. And so she went after school, she went and worked, and I think Yasim was a trainer. She would be a journalist in Grenada at the time, a guy named Mr. Cabaret. And I went into doing my thing with Grenada National Cooperative Union, GUPC, as the president of that, co-founder of that organization. However, growing up, I had a number of people in my community that I looked up to that was doing business. And I saw the difference between people who did not do anything and people who did many things. I grew up with a family that was in business myself. And those people who know Sotes very well, my grandparents had owned businesses right in the tongue of Sotes by my mother's side. And on my father's side, we have owned value. We recall that my grandparents had a bakery that supplied bread throughout the length and breadth of St. Andrews. As a little boy, I had business always on my mind. I saw it. It laid the foundation for my business attitude that I have right now. In school, one of my teachers was very, very instrumental in my mindset training was Mr. Valentine Vivek. I'll never forget that in Assembly Hall one morning, he was making a general address to the students, and he said, no matter what you do in school, you could be a teacher and you could get fired. You could be a lawyer and you could lose your profession. But if you have a skill, that's yours. You could go into business for yourself. And I wanted to be a doctor. And I thought about that, and I said, you know what, I'm going to stick with the woodworking. So I went, the school had a woodworking center, you had a drafting thing, you had a typing pool, and you had a home economics center. I took all those classes. So I learned to cook there, I learned to type. I went to the science lab, I do science, human social bio, woodworking, and mechanical drawing, drafting. So I took all of this, and when I came to Canada, I even expanded on those things. But there's teacher like Mr. Eros Rapier also, who had laid on my mind deeply. I walked into class one day, Pablo. I had a big afro. I did not shake it off, I didn't comb it out. And I decided to go with my Coach O'Neill comb style here in the classroom with my red, green, and black tongue. And he put it up and he said, what is that? You know, comb that here up and be yourself. There's greatness in you, and you could do it yourself. So I went outside, get my afro comb, and I comb up my hair. And I thought that was the end of it. At the end of the term, it was written on the back of my report card for my parents to see. So that was another thing. So that kind of changed my dimension a bit. Then my godfather, Mr. Everest James, Val might know him, was one of the furniture makers in the village. He was my godfather. And I would go by him. And one of the things that changed, what really, really impressed upon me with that whole thing, to call him my hero, right? To do what I'm doing today. I'm probably, you probably, you could attest to me working during the day. You're not there, but you hear the calls I get. John this, John come. Eric, I call him Mr. Fixie, the doctor, boy calling me. And Pablo was on the phone with me one day, and within 10 minutes, I'm gonna get about 15 calls. And there's other people who do the job, but everybody want the real McCoy. You know what I mean? So, and all of this came from the work ethics I saw from those people, Mr. Everest James. He was committed to doing that. And I worked in a project that I knew it was my own, my parents' own, during the Christmas season. And the night I went to my father to pick it up, and I realized it was one of the things I worked on. and have it finished. So that to me was one of the hallmark for me growing up there. But as I become older and embracing my youthfulness and my adult life, I have worked as a soldier in the army. And I've been around a lot of people and I saw a lot of working people. And one of the persons that really, really impressed of my heart for hard work and commitment to job was Bernard Code. Right? I say that with no apologies. He worked hard. I worked with him up and down, and he been going at it, working hard just to make sure we get things done right. And I took that work ethic deeply into my work today. So much so that, I sometimes said, wow, I wonder if all of this work gonna go in vain. But I've surrounded myself with competent people like yourself, Pablo, Delbert, Val, and my wife and my daughter. And because of those work ethics that I've seen from those people I've spoken of, that have compelled me. Because if they didn't give up on the work, it means that they have seen something themselves, they see something other people, and they had something to do, and they was committed and passionate about what they're doing. So I took all these little things I see from people, and I could nail it down to just 2 or 3 persons that have made that impression on my life and changed it. Mr. Everest James, Mr. Valentine Vivek, Bernard Code, and my mom, who's always, I always say most of the time I make statement, all I hope to be, I owe it to my mother, But in the community, there's a lot of other persons that have made significant impact in my life. But I will go back to this Mr. Valentine Vivek statement, my godfather and Bernard Code, who have really, really impressed upon me what hard work is. And if you work hard at something, stick with one thing, be committed and passionate about it, you could get it done. So thank you again.
Thank you very much, Brother John. It's when we have these conversations and we begin to reflect on the journey that we've had, the road that we've traveled, and where we are at this juncture, and the fact that we having this conversation about what qualifies a person for a national hero, and immediately we're seeing that people whom we grew up with, who were our elders, who were our companions, how they would have impacted on our view of our community, our view of ourselves, our view of our country, our view of the world, our world view. And the sort of the kind of organism, as to use a phrase of a terminology of one of my brethren, the way the organism has evolved, to become what you've become at this point in time. It really speaks to the fact of why we find the people, generally speaking, having that kind of perspective and having that kind of affinity to the whole concept of a national hero, to the whole concept of a savior, someone to come to point the direction, someone to come who has the vision, someone who is different, who has a different approach, and who demonstrates a level of dedication and other qualities, that doesn't come natural or is not part of the norm with many of us in our day-to-day lives. And as a consequence of that, it's important for us to look at what are some of those qualities, what are some of the prevailing qualities that we can identify in some of those people who have made such differences, who have made such impact. What is the extent to which they had to go in order to accomplish what they did? So against that background, I want to go to our sister Val now to help us in identifying some of those defining qualities of a national hero, or of an individual who would, who we can say, who can be considered for that status of national hero. What would you say are some of these defining qualities?
Thank you again, Pablo. Let me first go back a little bit to a question you asked earlier that Delbert answered so well, so well, very instructive. I wanted, and he dealt with it, as he said, in a granular way, which is important because we need to land these important thoughts and concepts, land them in a way that everybody can relate to. While he was talking, I wanted to make the observation that we know that our societies are complex. Human nature is complex. And so you have multiple forces that are operating, that you're exposed to, that are prevailing, etc. Right? You have good, you have bad, you have indifference, and you have all kinds of shades of gray in between. And it occurred to me while he was talking that one of the key reasons why having national heroes is important, which is part of the question that you had asked, to add to what he had already established, is that it is a key way in the national conscience, the national psyche, the national stage to emulate and encourage those characteristics that serve us well, right? It's important to distinguish them from the rest of all the complexity of the milieu or whatever makes up society. Because when you are able to distinguish that, it tends to attract following that leads us to success. So it's important to distinguish what it is. What are these features? What are these qualities? What are these factors? What are these contributions that serve us well as a nation, as a society? And when we distinguish them, to illuminate them, to bring light to them, to celebrate them, to emulate them, to make everybody aware, bring awareness to it, right? And I just wanted to add that dimension to the importance of having national heroes. And which are some of the elements, like you said just now, that contribute to that, like the person that contributes to national development, to community building, elements of sacrifice, right? Caring for others, being visionary or having a vision. And I tend to use Delbert's expression of getting to be granular. Many of us would see a huge tree and we see wood, we see the bark, we probably even see green leaves, we might see the tree change color depending on where in the world we live. A sculptor sees something that he can create out of that tree.
Yes.
A sculptor sees more than just the tree.
Yes.
Right? It's almost like you, Pablo. When you see a piece of leather, you don't just see a piece of leather. You start to see, because you are visionary, the item, the craft, the creativity that that can emerge, the shoe or the bag that you can make from the leather. And mothers, while we don't consider them national heroes, they never get selected to be national heroes, because I think indeed we need to celebrate them every day. And I speak to that because My mother was a dress designer, and John was making the reference to the fact that how people around you influence you. My mother was a dress designer, a seamstress, and a business owner because she set up a boutique, and eventually she made bridal gowns in a factory. But following my mother around in a fabric store, how she chose fabric, just like a sculptor could look at a piece of a tree, a big old ugly tree, and see the item that he would create from sculpting. So too, she would look at a piece of fabric, and me just looking at her wonder, well, what is she going to do? I can't see what she's going to do with the fabric. But by the time she finishes, she does her vision of it, her creativity, her work, her craft is invested in this piece of cloth. You would be amazed what emerges from it. So very often as a nation, the vast majority of our people often, I'm not saying they don't ever, but often don't have the same level of vision that some specific persons do have. We often get bogged down in the day-to-day chores of survival and work and things like that, right? But people who have that specific quality and talent of vision are able to see and create and make possibilities out of the impossible. And for us to, as a nation, as a people, to have that, even as a community, to have that, to follow, to emulate, to say, oh boy, that makes sense, especially when it comes to the example of the good, the things that will serve us well. So they serve us well. Whatever their contribution help to us to advance as a people. That's an important quality, right? And whether that be economic advancement or spiritual advancement or whatever other form of advancement is important. And another factor for me is that they cultivate and present and show us the things that avoid us getting into confusion and anarchy. Because in the complexity of society, we have evil, we have bad, we have confusion, we have conflict, right? But what it is that helps us to not disintegrate into anarchy would be the more positive things that people who are national heroes and our mothers are contributing nation building help us to develop. They are like the North Star of our compasses for us to follow if we want to succeed or advance in life. So those are some of the characteristics, the contributions, the factors that I think are so critical in considering who has contributed enough to our society to be a national hero. But the vision part is important. I don't even want to repeat the common expression regarding vision. And I want to use a quick example, another quick example that comes to mind as I'm raising this. I remember facilitating some community development planning in a village. I don't want to call the name of the village, in a very deeply rural village at the foot of a mountain in Grenada. And on that particular occasion, I was facilitating a group of about 20, 25 women, all mothers and so from that village gathered. And we had an ongoing process, and once a week I'll meet with them. And I remember asking the question, what is your vision for yourself for the next year? Not even the next 5 years, the next year. And I was expecting a myriad of answers. And most of the women, not one of them, was able to say to me, that's my vision for myself for the next year. Is something wrong with them? No. I thought they're so bogged down in the survival, day-to-day survival, looking after the children, looking after the husband, that it didn't occur to them to take a moment about looking about direction for the next year. The next year was next year. I don't even know if I live to see the next year. Right? So it is people like national heroes that help our folk to look beyond their immediacy towards something better. I end on that note. And let me just say, as I had explained to you, Paulo, I do have another commitment. So if I sneak out just now, forgive me, and to the listeners, and so also forgive me. But I just wanted to add those observations to the conversation.
Val, I just want to piggyback on what you said about mothers, because for me, I recognize it now that what you said, but you know, my mother also was a dressmaker, all right, and our family went through a rather sort of traumatic experience in 1972 with the bus accident in Coquelin when 9 people from our village died, right? Mm-hmm. And I saw my mother die also and come back to life about 6 months after. She forgot just how to do the most basic of things. And I remember my dad, who was a very quiet man, it was the first time I kind of understood what it meant to love somebody.
Delbert, was that the Jojo accident?
Yes. Because he was struggling with his own feelings, and I'm sure he felt helpless. And we were mostly boys, right? We lost our sister, and the second one was touch and go in the hospital. We didn't know whether she would survive. And my father came to us, the boys, and he said, don't put any pressure on mom. Just whatever she asks you guys to do, just be there for her. Please don't let her go out. And because he had recognized the change in her, don't let her go out by herself. You know, if she's going, make sure one of you guys are tagging along. And now my I had two older brothers living at home at the time. So they were grown men already, so that they ain't doing that. And then my younger brother was too young to be helpful. So it kind of fell on me. So I ended up going with her. And when Val was talking about that seamstress, I would actually remember my mom going into the stores and picking up the cloth and smelling it and rolling it between her fingers. And then she would wrap it a certain way to find out if it's going to bow, if it's, you know, when you're making the bows and whatever other things that she want to do, whether it's going to stand up well and what thread. So when you spoke about the sculpture and the seamstress and how we can just see a plain piece of paper or a plain piece of canvas, but in their eyes that they see something far, far beyond. That's the vision that we're talking about. That's the creativity coming to light. And I really share your comment that you know, in some ways, all mothers are heroes, right? And how you tied it in at the end with your experience with this women. Isn't that so uniquely typical of women that they put everybody else, okay, ahead of their own personal interests? Now, I'm sure if you would have asked these women the question about their children, they would have gone on for days what they want their children to become and what they hoping for. But they don't see themselves. I mean, it's just remarkable. It's just remarkable. So I really that comment kind of really touched me, because despite what people think that Delbert is this tough guy, I'm a mommy's boy, you know. I'm a mommy's boy. Yes. Yeah.
I want to I know Val touch on a number of things there, Pablo, if you allow me.
Yeah, go right ahead, brother.
You know, identifying the heroes. It's one of the things that often go unnoticed. The contribution and the motherly kind of attitude that comes out of a hero, the nurturing, the caring. And sometimes we say, well, a man can be nurturing and caring. A man embraces the struggles of a country. He takes that mantle on himself, to lead the field for change. And that's why we have all these heroes, those political heroes. We look at them and say they have paved the way to bring us to this point where we are. And they have taken care of the community, the country. They have fought for betterment, and just as our mother will fight for her children, they will embrace the community as a mother. They will embrace, and all these men you see today, the future have been shaped by the mothers. Yes. And so they take that passion from mommy into the community, into the church, into the government. And they embrace that motherly kind of concern for people, that they will die for their children. They see the country, the people as their children. They do it for them, not for themselves. They do it for the people. They do it on behalf of the people. They go the extra mile because they want to see something different. They want to see our people prosperous. They want to see our people educated. And I think Pablo earlier on, I think it was Vala Pablo, somebody make reference to the education. I think when we look back at how people are educated and what they take education to do, and mostly not just for themselves, but how they could serve other people. When you look at a doctor that is committed and give of himself, I want to look at doctors across borders. They go out to countries without nothing worrying. They go to El Salvador. I have a doctor friend that he goes everywhere, and he don't look for pay. He got there to do a service. And the heroic thing about is that they go through bad situations to deal with government who say no, we want them in their countries, because they go into remote parts of the country to do their services and for the people there, because they know that people, they need that service. And without their service, these people will die. And so they take on this mantle and go with it, just like a mother will do for her child. If she's sick, you ever see a mother hen fight a dog coming around,
Yes,
that's the kind of a commitment and passion that is in a hero. They will fight any giant to protect the small ones. So when we look back at our Grenada, for example, we look at what Eric Matthew have done in the 50s. And people may say he's not a hero and that, right? Maybe self-thing, but a lot of things that he have done, right? Even though people say, well, it's for himself. I mean, Les Brown said, you can't sprinkle perfume, some people don't get some on yourself. Yes? And he have done a lot. I'll tell you something. Some poor people in Grenada would always see Gary as their hero, what he has done for them. And you can't take it away from them. It's like trying to take out white in the rice. It ain't gonna happen, So to them, Gary has done a remarkable job. I remember on this show here, Bonald Coach said that he had to get in the tongue of St. George's. He had to get a lady, convince this lady to vote for the New Jewel movement. And she asked him, what can they do for her that Gary have not done to get her vote? You see? So they have seen Gary like that hero, and anybody have to get there will do better than Gary. Or they ain't going nowhere. Because they believe that's the man. He's the man for them. He's the one that risk everything for them and make them have what they have. So our mothers, our fathers who have done what they have done for us, the national heroes, are those people who make this sacrifice in any kind of weather, committed, not just loyal, but committed and passionate at what they're doing, not just for themselves, but for the people. And I think that's where we have to start looking deeply. Who are those people in our communities that are making that passionate and committed, not loyal, because people shift loyalty all the time, committed and passionate about what they're doing for the people. And that's who I look to as heroes.
So that begs the question, Val, I know you said you have to leave, but I would like you to kind of just chime in on that. Can a national hero also be somebody who is flawed?
Is what?
Somebody who is flawed, who has flaws. Can somebody rise to the...
I mean, absolutely.
Okay.
And
Sister Val, before you respond to that, it's amazing how things go, eh? Because this is the very issue that I was about to get to, right? Seeing that we're speaking, my thing here was that, well, okay, considering the fact that man by nature is not perfect, right? And okay, someone has done yeoman service and so to the community, to the nation, and so on and so forth. What would that person have to do? What negative would have to come from that person that they would not then still not qualify for that status? What infringement, what grievous thing would that person have to do?
I want to respond in a way that says, first of all, we are human beings. We are all human. All have a flaw or another. It happens, though, that some flaws impede your ability to contribute to your community and to be an example to the nation more than others.
Yeah.
Right? Some flaws are hidden. So man is complex. So there are people who, when it comes to their contribution to the nation, they seem like perfection, right? But sometimes if you speak to their women or you speak to their children, they have a different story.
Yeah.
Does that make them less of a hero? I'm not sure. And that's why that conversation is so important. Because in one facet, one area of their life, they have been excellent. They are distinguished, right? And they have managed to not to allow the flaw that they have as human beings to impact the society. That's another key factor. If that flaw negatively impacts the society, that's a different matter. That's a different. And John and I could talk, we could know of big national heroes. I think of one in particular who we know had a flaw, but in the public image and the public had a serious flaw.
Yeah.
But I was hidden from the public view.
Yes.
And you know something that a lot of us cover it up.
I'll add, John, that many of us who were close to that individual would never, even today, the person has passed, would never publicly maybe demonize or reveal that flaw. Who knows? No.
Yeah.
Because the other contributions that the person made in the public space overshadowed the flaw. So let's not fool ourselves that we'll have any national hero that is
flawless,
100% perfect, because we're not going to get 100% perfection. Right? And I mean, I know John would relate very well to that.
I live with
it. And it's a very, very good question, a very pertinent.
I know too.
As we start to visit this issue of national heroes, it is going to come up. It is going to come up. And what do we do about that? Do we, and it's an important question, do we throw away the baby with the bathwater, or we recognize the person for their contribution to the public and to the nation building, and what should I say, not erase, but not pay as much attention to that part. And it's a conversation not just for the subject of picking national heroes. It's a conversation for us as a society, because we often tend to focus on the negatives in our people, right? We go first in the negatives. And how do we not ignore it? Because if it's impacting on people, it's harming people, it's hurting people. We can't just ignore it and say, well, it's okay because they're making a contribution. But how do you find that balance
so
Yeah.
that it doesn't serve as an impediment.
Yes.
And I think that that question is particularly important because I have had to come to terms with my own sort of um, my Gary position, I call it. All right. And and I listen, I despise the man growing, right? And then as you grow older, and you become a mature and you have more worldly experience, you read and you see of people who may have had similar experiences and have failed along the way. And for me, what helped me sort of come up with a more nuanced position on Gary was a conversation I had with my father, because my father was one of his quote unquote, you know, bad lieutenants when he came back from Aruba and was going around burning estates and doing things. My dad was that, had come from that sort of peasantry thing. My mom, on the other hand, came from the plantocracy, and she had to really convince him to come over to that side because she did not see any value in Gary. But her entire opinion about Gary was informed by her family she felt losing out to his advocacy, right? And my dad saw it the other way. He finally did come over and sort of joined her on the other side. And I remember a couple of years before he passed away, he never wanted to talk about it. And I asked him because I wanted to know. And he said, by the way, my father called all his sons Joe. He didn't have time for pleasantries with your name. Everybody was Joe, you know. He said, Joe, you don't understand. He said, you have to understand the condition that existed in Grenada prior to that. And he said, whatever sort of mistakes or that he made after that, for me, it was worth it because it changed so many people's lives for the better. And he said, believe it or not, you may not think that you benefited from Gary, but but you did, you know. And you know, it forced me to sort of take a different look at him. I mean, you know, you just can't take away the contribution he made if you're going to be honest. And that's something that we're going to have to do, right? We're going to have to be. The conversation is going to have to be honest. And we're going to have to be able to put aside our political feelings about people, okay? And deal with the facts as they are. That's why.
Brother
That,
Delbert, our partisan political perspectives.
well,
Mm,
yeah,
yes.
and for me, it's even ideological, right? So, but yes, so we're going to have to do that, and the conversation is going to have to be honest, and you know, that in itself is going to be a reflection of our own growth as a young nation. So, I am just so happy that we're having this conversation. And like I said, it's happening other places. I've seen other people ask questions about it. I, for one, have long, I don't know, for more than a decade now, almost 2 decades, I've been strongly advocating to rename all the schools in Grenada after local heroes, right? And my reasoning for that was about the earlier story I told, my own primary school. When I saw, and I'm going to mention his name because he's still alive, Mr. Warwood, the contribution, how that man changed the trajectory of the village of Chantemelle. It's so many young people now seeing, you know, this is a principal that we know lives in this small house there. And he lived a very simple and humble life, right? You know, even if he went on to achieve great things, I think he became head later on of the statistics and education and examination department in the Ministry of Education. But you know, how do we, I mean, I don't know who is St. Joseph. I don't know who is this and that and these other people. I know who is Mr. Ward. I know who is Mr. Mark. I know who is Mr. College John. I know who is Mr. O.A.T. Raymond. I know who is Mr. Palmer. I know who is Mr. Francis. I know these people and I know the contribution they made. I know who is Sister Therese. I know who is Brother George Wilson, Mr. McField. All these people, I know them. In some way, when Pablo asked you the question about people who may have contributed in our lives to all have it where we have this sort of deeper and better understanding. There's so many people would have touched us along the way, and sometimes they weren't no big educator or worked in any big government ministry or any in the police service or anything, because I had all that around me. But when I think about those people who impacted my lives so greatly growing up in the village, they were simple people. I remember this elderly lady who I took food and water to, every other day, all right? This was a lady who was destitute, But when my mom sent me there, every time I went there, she made sure she had something for me. If it was a mango, if it was damsel, if it was a toffee, it didn't matter. That was her way of showing her appreciation. That was, so at the time, I didn't need it, of course, and I don't know if I really appreciated it, but later on I recognized what a deep sense of gratitude that she was showing to me just for what I was doing. I wasn't really doing it on my own. I was instructed that I had to do it, and I had to do it. But those are the kind of things that happen at the very community level, at the very basic level, where we live next to each other. And we take these things for granted in terms of how they help our village grow. Because here you had this person now who had nothing, but would still spend time with you. I would go there, she would tell me stories about the village, tell me stories about my parents, about my grandparents, who I didn't know very well. And it happened when I was young. So, my brain was still a sponge and I was able to soak it in. And that's for me what I talk about, my own spiritual growth and my own sort of emotional, developing my emotional intelligence. And I value these concepts tremendously. And I think it has helped me now to become more honest about my own feelings in the way I raise my daughter, and in the way I'm able to look at somebody and say, okay, we don't have to agree 100% to work together or to do something for the improvement of whoever lives. And I'm hoping that honesty and that we we can check our egos at the door and to a certain extent whatever residual anger that we may have towards certain people, and have the conversation and tell the true story of them. And that whatever flaws they may have had, as Val so correctly said, if that flaw did not impede the wonderful and brilliant and earth-shattering and changing things that they did, then I don't know if it really should be part of the conversation.
Thank you very much, Brother Delbert. We see that we're coming down to the time where we have to close out for the evening, because we do not want to make this thing any lengthy, boring kind of exercise, but because essentially the focus was actually to have this thing as a 90-minute session. We did not start at the designated time, but we've been going for close to 90 minutes now. But before we close off, I want us to, given the fact that much of the conversation here, and when you listen to a lot of the explanations and the people that's been spoken about, are regular people that you meet on a day-to-day basis, and we're seeing that these people have impacted on individual lives, would have played significant roles in the community and whatever. And we often hear the term being used about unsung heroes. If we are going to have that kind of recognition of national heroes, are we going to have different categories, right? Are we saying that that the people who we're speaking about, right, they are not, or they do not fall into the category of the very famous and the very well-known and the people of great prominence, social and economic and academic status. And typically, when you get into a conversation and you get into identifying national heroes, you see that it's mostly former prime ministers and former members of particular organizations and so on and so forth that come up for that level of recognition. Significant sports personalities. And so, how do we get to that point, or what approach should we take in terms of bringing recognition to these other people who do not necessarily come from that status, that societal status from which our heroes are usually designated? How do we get to that point of giving recognition to these regular heroes? And do they qualify? Really? Do they qualify for the status of national hero? Open season. Anybody goes. Brother Delbert, you want to lead off? Or Sister Val, seeing as you have to leave us.
Yeah, let Val go because I know she has to leave. Yeah.
I think Val has already left the building.
Oh, she's left already. Okay. All right. I wanted to get.
Go
ahead.
So I think, Pablo, that's very, very, very important question. In that, there are people who would have done great things, but and Val spoke to that earlier on, but who may have not sort of crossed that threshold into what would be a national hero. So my take on it would be to have a series of awards, and the award of being national hero is the very last one, or the very top one, and it's reserved for the select few, so to speak. But that along the process, maybe we should have an award, and I suspect a lot of them would have to be done retroactively, for educators who would have made so much contribution to who we are as a people now. For people who excelled in agriculture, which has been a big part of our lifestyle. For people who excelled in whether it was the police service or sports. So you can have these different areas where every year you do a national award. So we probably can start off, okay, in let's say in the first, I don't know, I'm speculating here, the first 3 years of this thing, all the awardees would be for people who are no longer with us. And that would give the body, so let's say with both private, with the government and some kind of organization, the Grenada Academy of Arts, Culture, and Science, whatever you want to call it, right? Be set up to look at these things in depthly. So maybe for the first 3 years of its existence and the award, everybody who would be awarded something or would be nominated and approved would be people who are no longer with us. And that would give us the opportunity, give the organization or the country as a whole, not just the organization, to learn more about this person, right? Because when we talk about this thing always going to political leaders, I'm who are the political junkie, always tend to gravitate to that. But there were people who went about making their changes or making their contribution, not necessarily being involved in the politics of the day, but sort of strongly influence it from the outside. And for me, one of the people who I did not learn about in school as much as I think I was a history junkie, William Donovan, who in the, I know that was somebody who was brought to my attention by, one of my former high school teachers. And I'm just blown away by this man that in the 1800s, this man was already calling for countries like Grenada to end colonial. I mean, just imagine the vision that he had to have, right? And the foresight, because in those days, the British could have just made him disappear. There was no, I mean, they could have done anything to him. But the courage and the vision and the tenacity that he showed and was not afraid to speak up. And in many ways, you can argue that he is the father of that kind of sort of revolutionary spirit that Grenada has become known for. So I think we have to have different. We have to look at, because developments in sports and culture or the arts, in engineering, in all these areas that we take for granted, the wonderful dressmakers that we had in different villages, the people who baked and made the wedding cakes, all these people who contributed in some way to us growing as a nation, we are going to have to find some way to get them mentioned and people to know their story. Because I think what it's going to do more than anything, it's going to inspire future generation that if these people could have done so much with so little, all right, both in terms of the financial resources, even some of them had no real formal education, but they saw that vision and they spoke to it and they inspired people. We can't, it must be part of our growth. And again, it has to be part of that transformation. I was speaking to a friend this morning from a good friend of mine from Jamaica, and he follows Grenadian politics religiously, sometimes even more than me. And he was talking to me about, oh, Del, you guys, he wished that he was in Grenada now, and it's so excited. He heard the Prime Minister's address to the UN, and he said there's something about you Grenadian people, that I don't get. He actually called small island people. He said, you small island people, I don't understand how you guys can think that you can do all this thing. And I'm here sitting, grew up in big Jamaica with all this thing around me, and I never thought about it. So there's something that does to lift our spirits, to tell the story of the people who have gone before us and made that contribution. And now, hopefully, it would inspire current and future generation to add their story, to add their treasure in that ladder that's eventually going to transform our society to a place where, despite of all our political differences, whatever they may be, okay, that we will be proud of the place called Grenada. I always joked. I remember shortly after coming to the US, Reagan had visited Grenada. And, at that time, I'm sort of gung-ho and I'm defending Grenada. And, and one of my newly found American friends, when Reagan went to Grenada and our Prime Minister did something, and we saw it on the evening news, because wherever the president goes, it's news. And he came the next day and he said, Dal, where are you from? I said, why? He said, I saw your president yesterday, because at that time, Black folks in America did not particularly like Ronald Reagan. He said, I saw your president yesterday praising Reagan, man. He said, come on, man, I don't believe in anything that you've been telling me, man. I said, listen, my friend, you Americans do not understand geography. I am from Guyana, not Grenada. So I was so embarrassed I had to change my nationality for a couple hours. But, I'm saying that to say that there endless things in our history, endless things about our people who have gone before us that would make us proud. We just have to tell the story, and we have to write it, and we have to document it.
Yeah, thank you, dear Brother Del. But we've come to crunch time now. So before we close, before I make some closing remarks here, Brother John, any final words that you want to share on this whole issue of our national heroes, this conversation? Because this is the first, as I said, and there are other elements of this that will be ventilated in future conversations. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I'll mute you for a bit there. Yeah. All right. And as I reflect on this idea of heroes, in June 19th, the Grenada Revolution has set aside that day for Heroes Day in Grenada. All Grenada heroes that passed away was honored on Heroes Day, and they will highlight in the rallies and the big billboard with the different heroes in the park. I think that we will do ourselves a disservice if we try to create political boundaries and ideologies of our heroes. I think every generation, every politician that has significantly impacted our way of life in a positive way have made Grenada proud and stand up for the better good of the people, need to be recognized for the work. That includes Eric Matugeri. Also, Mr. Marisho, Buzz Butler, just to name a few. I think it's one of the things that we should do, and do without any political ill will that would politicize the process. We need not to do that. What we need to do is to ensure that we give Jack his jacket and let him wear it proudly. And those of us who continue to look through the lens of the faults of others, the minute mistakes, like you always say, Pablo, no one is perfect. And Jesus even made the point, the only person that is perfect is God, not even him. So who are we? There are persons living who have made significant contribution to Grenada, and some of the benefits that we enjoy today are from those people. So when we're looking for heroes, it is important, very important, that we take off the political lens and put on the humanistic lens for the contribution that those persons have made. Not only those that are politically, but those are in the medical field, agriculture. I don't have to be a politician. Everybody, teachers, they're great teachers, they were mentioned earlier. I know teachers in my school that have made a lot of work, do a lot of things that do for students, things that their parents have not done for them. And those children see those as heroes. I was reading a post earlier on today when somebody made a comment about the new permanent secretary as her best math teacher. And somebody accused her of making a political statement because she asked a question afterwards when the person made a statement. And she asked who invited you, and he made a statement to the effect that you make a political statement. It was not a political one. I think sometimes we politicize the simplest thing too much, because we touch the nerve of some political operatives, and we feel that we should be biting their head off for making the statement. However, our community have to look in deep in within and draw from the well, yes, of those people who have gone before us, and those are still with us, that are making and have made significant commitment and passionate and diligent contribution to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. There's a lot of people that we need to give recognition to, so that our young people, they will not just do it for themselves, but they know how to honor people who have done it, have paved the way. They must know who are those people, what have they done for the, and what contribution, really, what they have made to the betterment of the country, from the primary level to the senior level. And there are all people between that have made that contribution. So Pablo, in closing, I want to thank you so much for being part and being the driver that drive that bus that will take us on that journey for the search for that hero within our communities, in our country, that will make that difference in the lives of our people in years to come. That they will know that this house, that this street was named after that person that Delbert says. But people does not know. And there are people going to still wouldn't know, but if we have a history, archive of those persons, what they have done, it will be much easier and more appreciative in the years to come. So your contribution here tonight, in one sense, have started something that need to be had. And I hope that we would not stop here. Because tonight at 8:30, we have another show coming up. We're talking about the agenda of the new government, and the topic would be, would the opposition come on board to pursue the transformation agenda? Because they are invited to the party. Let's see if they'll come and dance. But I hope that they put aside partisan and join the movement for change, for a better Grenada. And I hope that we all do that when we're choosing our heroes. Think about the people that have made the contribution and how he has impacted our lives. And I want to thank you again, Pablo, for taking initiative on Gem FM to do such a terrific job. Thank you very much, my friend.
Well, thank you very much, Brother John, because without you, we wouldn't be having this conversation here. Now, there are some things definitely that will not work if we make it a political or religious or otherwise partisan event. This is one of them. The same goes for constitutional reform. If we are genuine about constitutional reform, then we are, as a people, we are supposed to review what presently exists and identify what are the best practices, what we actually need to include, what we need to remove in order to position ourselves or in order to facilitate the transformation agenda that we're speaking about. And in order also for us to address some of those outstanding issues, some of those issues that come to the fore time and time again relating to how the constitution that presently exists is a restriction on some more progressive approaches and thinking, and practices as we try to transform this country. And so I would expect that as we proceed, because this is going to continue, when, excuse me, when this event was being advertised, there are people who, on receiving the promotional flyer, responded to say, yes, this is a very good idea, and they would be willing to participate in that conversation going forward. So we know that there's going to be other conversations. We know that we are going to be delving much deeper into other elements of this whole issue. And let me say in closing, based on what has been brought to the fore in this conversation, the amount of the number of references and analogies that were drawn in relation to our experiences or people's experiences from within the community with regular people and the impact they have had as community builders, which essentially make them nation builders, which ultimately qualifies them for consideration as a hero. So based on all of that, we're seeing that there is very likely to be the need for there to be different categories by which we recognize people. And Trinidad has a very telling example here. The Order of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago that is awarded to citizens, also non-citizens, who have rendered distinguished and outstanding services to the country. And then you have the Chaconia Medal, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Chaconia medal may be awarded to any person who has performed long or meritorious services to the country. And then you have the Hummingbird Medal that may be awarded to a person who has rendered loyal and devoted services. And then you have the Public Service Medal of Merit. And then you have the Medal for the Development of Women. Okay, so we will have to, coming out of the discussions going forward, I expect that we will determine what categories will need to be put in place. Who was, at what levels, at the community levels, who qualifies for national status, who qualifies for community status, and so on. But we need to recognize, definitely, those people who have made a difference in the lives of our citizens, in the communities, at the national level, and so on, so that they can be duly, they can be given their due and recognized for their contribution towards what we have become, towards our growth, towards our development. And we can use that, and that can serve as a motivation, because there was, in the presentations early on, people spoke about how motivated and so they were as a consequence of these kind of interventions from others. So I trust that we are going to be, delving further into these things, and definitely it is going to be an ongoing session for the foreseeable future. And I have no doubt about it that there will be others outside of this platform, outside of this network, that will be getting on board in terms of that conversation, because this is definitely a national issue. So thank you, Brother John. Thank you, Brother Delbert. And thanks to Sister Val for joining us. Thanks to those who have taken time off to be with us for the last 90 minutes or so. And we look forward to having you and to you sharing the information, share the conversation, and let's continue that discourse, because it is important to our nation-building endeavors. So thank you and have a good evening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We have Food Fest in Victoria, so
I can't come.
To those who's on the mainland, who's at home, we have Food Fest in St. Mark. It's usually the last Saturday of the month, but because of where the last Saturday fell in comparison to the end of the month, they've decided to have it on the first Saturday of October, which, as you know, yesterday was the last day of the month. So,
all right.
yeah. So
Okay.
food fest
All right.
it is.
All
Yeah.
right.
Go and get the
Quick,
Tanya log and the coconut bakes and sausage and that kind of stuff, you know.
Pablo, don't
Yeah,
make
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Your cost too much to come take a plane to come to Grenada right
And
now.
don't worry. Let me put in a thing here. You know, us NDC constituency branch in St. Mark here will be having a breakfast next week Saturday, and they'll in keeping with this conversation that we're having here, because actually that was one of the reasons why this conversation come about. We have a big event being planned for October the 23rd, and you'll be hearing more about it. It is being called Nation Builders Celebration. That's the title of it. Not Heroes. Nation, because I don't know who the heroes are yet. You know what I mean? We haven't defined that. So the Nation Builder Celebration will be celebrating our nation builders. And the theme of it is nation building for people's transformation. So people will have the opportunity to be exposed to some of that history. Will be displayed on PowerPoint presentation or in print and so on. Yes? And the two main presenters on the day, it ain't gonna be one of those things where you have a lot of speeches like the regular political rally. Two very focused presentations. And we heard Brother Delbert speak a while ago about what is the gentleman name again?
Warwood?
No, not Warwood. The one who he said was ahead of his time.
Oh, Donovan.
And Donovan is reputed to have been the mentor to T.A. Marishaw.
To T.A. Marishaw, yeah.
Right, to T.A. Marishaw,
there would not have been any T.A. Marishaw without Donovan.
Who carries the label of Father of Federation. Yeah. And T.A. Marishaw actually belongs to this period because he was born in November and died in October. So he belongs to this historic period, you know. Yes, he died on the 19th of October, and he was born on the 7th of November, 1887, and he died in October of 1958. You know, and actually that's one of the reasons why. Right? That's one of the reasons why I have a name what a lot of people don't know. Theophilus.
Yes.
Theophilus. And actually the gentleman who named me Theophilus was a colleague of T.A. Marishaw. Okay? And incidentally, Delbert was speaking about renaming streets and all of that. The street that people traverse when there's any blockage on the main street in Guelph, that street that you have to traverse at the back, that back street, that is called Edward Street. It had been renamed during the Revolution after the gentleman. His name was Daniel Small. Okay, and but with the fall of the Revolution, it was returned to Edward Street. You know, incidentally, the Cuthbert Peters Park was also renamed during the Revolution.
Yeah.
But
that was Blondell Church's brainchild, man.
Right, but they did not remove that one.
Yeah.
Right, they did not remove that one. Okay, because prior to that, it used to be Windsor Park.
Windsor Park.
Windsor Park was the name of it.
Yes.
You know. So we need to have these kinds of conversations and so, you know, so that we can really have an appreciation. So I was going to say that T.A. Marishaw, the focus is there's going to be special focus given to him. And the two presenters, one is going to be speaking about T.A. Marishaw, the politician. And we know he never lost his seat in the legislature, running for the seat of St. George's. Then he became the father of Federation. So T.A. Marishaw, the politician, compare and contrast him with the politicians that we've come to know over the past 10 to 20 years in terms of their values, their practices, their principles, and so, right? And the real McCoy at the end of it is going to be T.A. Marichaud, T.A. Marichaud Federation. Compare, not compare and contrast, but how does it compare with and instruct our present CARICOM integration initiative? Okay, so how does the T.A. Marichaud Federation, West Indian Federation, how does it instruct our present CARICOM integration initiative? And our relationship and our place in organizations and so like the United Nations and other such entities. Okay? And we'll be having a breadfruit festival and all of that. So more about that as we proceed. Yeah? So it was out of that we've gotten to the point of starting this conversation, and there's going to be much more of it to come. All right. So, thank you, Brother John.
Yes, I have my hero behind my back there. You know, that is this brother is called here is Ulrich Cross. Is a Trinidadian World War II navigation veteran, and I happened to do the opening of that movie 3 years ago, that before the COVID. He was part of the mission that went to Africa to get Ghana their independence. He was a lawyer and helped wrote the constitution for the Cameroon and among other West Indian lawyers that wrote the constitution for the Cameroon and Ghana. And Mr. Ulrich Cross was part of that process. So with C.S. Lewis and what's this guy? I can't remember trying to figure the guy's name right now. Well, a number of them. Okay. Mr. Fraser, and a number of other persons here that I can't remember the name in the background there, but they are persons who really helped Ghana and the Cameroon from Barbados, lawyers from Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad have wrote the constitution of those two countries. Yeah. So we have people in the Caribbean that could rewrite our constitution, because these two countries' constitution was not given to them by the Queen. They wrote those constitutions for themselves. West Indian men, lawyers, drafted and give that constitution from those people for these two countries. West Indian men, lawyers, Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad lawyers was do that. And this Mr. Ulrich Cross was a big part of that writing of those constitution. So the movie Hero, those of you who haven't seen it yet, it was produced and directed by Frances Ann Solomon. Yeah, she did that one. So it's a good movie. You need to see it. All right, if you go on my website, you will see the trailer for it as well. Check out www.gemfm.ca. You will see the trailer, and you could follow up online where the movie is being played all the time. All right. Tonight at 8:30, we'll be back here with Delbert Baptiste, myself, Margaret Francis, Lincoln Deputy, and Hudson George, along with Pastor Daphne Gabriel. We'll be discussing on the Talking Point show the transformation agenda. Big question: can the government get the opposition on board? That's the big question. So we're going to talk about that and the pros and cons about that. So probably if you want to come and join us tonight, again, we're busy, but again, I said to you, you're always welcome to join our conversation. You're not restricted to that. You're a very valuable person that I know that whatever conversation we have in here, you can make a positive contribution towards it. So you're always invited to every show that we have in, and then Saturday night or Friday night to come in and give your piece, whether calling or sitting in the boardroom. You know.
Okay. Thank you, Brother John. I very likely might be calling in to this one this evening.
All right. And we invite everybody to call. Who could call in?
Yes, okay? You can call in. All right.
It is a very important topic of discussion, as this one was. We want people to be engaging in that conversation, transformation agenda. And I think the need to discuss it, because there is people who who believe that could happen, those who believe that that would never happen, you never get everybody on board to do that. And I said that you will not get everybody on board. Of the 4 years of the Green Revolution, everybody was on board with the agenda. Okay, we had to keep on moving forward all the time. So we got to keep on moving forward, building and moving forward. So some people, my little wife will say, with or without you, WOW. With or without you, we're moving forward. So that is my thing. So again, God bless everyone. And I'm going to play, I have 2 songs to play that related to our conversation here tonight. And this one is Let Us Build a Nation Together by The Merchant. There you go.
Okay, thank you, brother.
All right, man.
I'm
I'll
up.
see you in about an hour.
Yes, sir. All right.
Yes,
Thank you,
sir.
Pablo. One love.
All right, all the best. Yeah, man.
All right.
Nice. Yeah.
Now the election back and I'll die away. In short, this is what I have to say. Let us forget fights and grudges and concentrate. Come, let us sit and try to relate. Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come, let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come, my brother, come, my sister, and let us build a nation together. Oh, yeah, remember, the key to success is working hard. For our country we must have regard. Forget all your differences, let we start to build. And onward to progress we surely will. Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So come, let us work hand in hand, because this is our land. Come, my brother, come, my sister, and let us build a nation together. So much of things that we need to see about. Surely I do have to spell them out. Cause you know as well as I do, the only way is put in more effort and less play. Because now, more than ever, we must show
discipline, tolerance, and production. Hey!
To build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So let us do hand in hand, because this is our land. Come, my brother, come, my sister, and let us build a nation
Together.
This also goes for every Trinbagonian who want to live in a foreign land. Now is the time to come home and do something instead of staying out there and freezing. Because now, more than ever, we must show discipline, tolerance, and production to build a strong and better nation. I say that is the main foundation. So let us go hand in hand, because this is our land. Come my brother, come my sister, and let us build a nation together.
Yes. Yes, you listen to Gem FM Radio. I'm your host, the Sheriff. Yours truly, John Callis, right here on Gem FM. Every day, 24 hours of radio programming. We do it nice and sweet for you every time. Stand up for something, or you'll fall for nothing. The Black Stallion, Dr. Leroy Callis. Join us tonight. Later on, 8:30 tonight. The Talking Point Show with yours truly, John Callis. Don't forget, those are in Toronto. All Us Kitchen is available for you. 477 Oakwood Avenue. Go get your special all along today. The transformation agenda will be discussed tonight. Would the opposition get on board? Would they? Come and join the conversation tonight. 8:30 right here on Gem FM. Stand up for something. This is Gem FM. I'm your host, the Sheriff. Yours truly, John Callis. Stand up for something. The Black Stallion. Yes, man. Stand up for something.
Workers out striking, black cats protesting. Before you join the fight, you rather break the strike. You like the condition, so they're fighting election. Before you sympathize, you rather criticize. And then you stand up for something, or you will die. up. People walking the walk. You happy as ever to be a fence watcher. Life's a precious thing for you to be within. Stand up and play your part and play it from your heart. I tell you, stand up for something or you will die for nothing. Get up, my friend, your life's soon within. I tell you, stand up for something or you will die for nothing. So your grandchildren too would be proud of you. I tell you,
Stand up for something or you will die for nothing.
stand up.
Stand up. Stand up for something, will die for nothing. Yes, man. That's how we do it. Right here on Gem FM. Every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, 8:30. Next Friday night, we'll be having Mr. Justin Pierre. Yes, with the needs assessment survey for Toronto, Canada. And we're talking about human trafficking as well. It is a big issue in the world today. The Philippines have a high number of that as well. Trafficking young girls and boys. We'll be discussing that at length next week, Friday. Friday night, excuse me. Also, tonight again, we invite you to come back here with us as we discuss the transformation agenda by the National Democratic Congress Party and government of Grenada moving forward. And the question is, would the government, the opposition, be willing to support the government in the agenda of moving Grenada forward, inclusively, everyone. So we're asking you tonight to come back here as we continue to have that discussion on the transformational agenda on Gem FM Radio. And those of you who need a copy of our magazine, please forward your email to us and we could have the magazine sent to you via email so you can read it in your leisure time. Also, coming up on the 10th of December will be our 5th annual Red and White Affair and award ceremony taking place on the 10th of December. Yes, so we invite you to come. Only $40 per ticket. I think so. Those of you here, $40, that's it. $40 per ticket for adults and $25 for children. So yes, the awards ceremony goes like this. We give awards to Entrepreneur of the Year, Author of the Year, a literary award for persons who wrote books and different books too. So that is New Author Literary Award. That's two different things. We have the Listeners of the Year award, goes out to a person who listen and share the most on this radio station to their friends and family we know, and we know who visit the most on this radio station as well. So we have that award we give out, and the biggest one of the night would be my late wife's award, the Lydia Callis Award of Excellence for persons who serve in the community and make a difference in somebody's life, the hero in the community. So if you know someone who deserving of an award for the service to the people in your community, feel free to also submit that person's name and the telephone number to us via email. All right, that is gemfm.ca@gmail.com. The same as our website, www.gemfm.ca. You could go on there and just click info@gemfm.ca. All right, so that is part of what we do here. We give awards out every year. And yeah, we did a good job at it for the last 5 years. So we're doing good. All right. And every year we also have a Gem FM Family Day in the park. And we invite everybody to come on out and have fun. Bring your food, let's have a potluck and just share food and have music and dance. Yes, we do that too. All right. Tomorrow morning is service as usual, whole Sunday. And Sunday evening we have a church from Trinidad who occupy the space from 5 o'clock, and they'll be doing from 4 o'clock. They have a special service going on for the men's ministry in Trinidad. Every morning from 8 until 10 is Texman Warren. She have her own show, getting intimacy in worship. From Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday, Pastor Daphne Gabriel with Community Dateline. Yesterday, Tuesday night, having the marriage counseling session. We have here every Tuesday night from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. We talk about marital issues, intimacy in marriage, sex, money, and communication is part of our discussion every time. And on Friday nights, we have the talking point, and on Saturday night, the talking point again. And 2:30 every day is Texman Warren with Talking with Tex. Wednesday night is 8 o'clock with Texman Warren. Again, she has a show called Men Hurt Twice More Than Women. Deal with domestic violence. The men don't talk about the violence that is come upon them, and they keep and suffer in silence, and they get the bad name when they react. But it's a woman's show. I am something I guess on it, but you are free to come on to call and voice your opinion. The line is always open. Again, the phone number is 437-980-7467. This is Gem FM, and I'm your host, The Sheriff. God bless you and make you a blessing. I'm out of here, folks. Have a blessed night. See you at 8.
Where you walk, what you say, when you talk, where you go, where you walk, what you say, when you talk.
It's a hungry world out there, with everybody scrambling to get a share. Wolves in sheep clothing, boats of prey waiting to swoop down on you, and there's no telling what they'll do. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. Where you go when you're walking, what you say when you're talking, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, careful. We have to prepare to meet the challenges of life without fear. Greed and jealousy, hatred and envy, man, you have to move with care in that jungle out there. You got to be careful. You gotta be careful. When you're moving, which direction you're going, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, careful.
When you go, when you walk, what you say, when you talk, when you go, when you walk, what you say, when you talk.
In your search for happiness, you gotta leave a little room for loneliness. Four things could happen all of a sudden before you realize it's only a disguise. You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful. With what you do and how you're doing it. If you do, when you're doing it, you gotta be careful. You gotta be careful, careful. gone. It's only vice and corruption that's going on. Staying alive, trying to survive, that is how it is today. So as you go along your way, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. Where you go when you're walking. What you say when you're talking. You got to be careful. You got to be careful, careful.
Norman was my good partner. To me he was like a brother. A jack of all trades, a very good sportsman. A real heavy dude, all the girls like Norman. Then he left and went away to a next country. And when he came back, it was a different story. He walking and shaking hips, wearing earrings and rouge on lips. What he did to himself, I don't know, but he really changed up to know. Wearing a tight pants and a handbag in his hand. I say no, this ain't true. And he wearing makeup too. I say, no man, is that you? Tell me, no man, is that you? I want to know, no man, is that you? We both went to school together. From small we was always partners. Breaking beach and pitching marbles in the yard. Now Lord, what is this? Like my partner gone man. When he passed in, all the boys just looked at him. And if you see how Norman must be blushing, whatever he do it so plain, he believed that he's not a man again. I hear he even gone so far to change his name to Norman. Wearing a tight pants and a handbag in his hand. I say no, this ain't true. And he wearing makeup too. I ask him, Norman, is that you? Tell me, Norman, is that you? I want to know, Norman, is that you? walk up to him. I say, Norman boy, what happening? He watch me cut eye, he stoops and he walk up. People was watching, so he start to show up. I say, Norman boy, it's me, your good old partner. He says, sorry my dear, but I can't remember. Mister, please don't waste your time. I suggest from now that you change your mind. Tackle some other woman. I am not hunting my husband. When you're calling, selling kiss. Oh my goodness, what is this? Looking more real than the girls. With his hair all missing curls. I say, no man, is that you? Tell me, no man, is that you? I want to know, no man, is that you? No man, is that you? No man, no man, what's wrong with you? Looking so? Yes, yes it's me. Yes it's me.
The present look of the world today is dim. And if we don't take heed, my friend, the chance is slim. Conflict and war, like nobody cares anymore. Is there no peace? Will this slaughter ever cease? Whoa, there must be a way, and we got to find it today. And let there be harmony. Live life in unity. There must be a way. I say, there must be a way. It seems man's basic aim is destruction. And nuclear is his deadliest invention. Could we stamp down on all that is humanly wrong? Each creed and race must find an equal place. Whoa, there must be a way, and we got to find it today. And let there be harmony. Live life in unity. There must be a way. I say, there must be a way. starvation and haven't yet got rid of racialism. No, no. Use and abuse, and the human rights are refused. Justice must be what it was made out to be. Whoa, there must be a way, and we got to find it today. And let there be harmony. Live life in unity. There must be a way. I say, there must be a way. Each time I hear the world news, Lord, it scares me to think of all the lives that perish daily. Then what is the worth of our lives here on earth? There's so much more to life than waging war. Whoa, there must be a way, and we got to find it today. And let there be harmony. Live life in unity. There must be a way. I say, there must be a way. There must be a way. Hey yo, this is Boise, big it up. DJ Soca Harley, taking real music and bringing it out to the world.
Them flatter like people in 150. Them please stop and then they entice you free. They even tell the whole world at last we free. And for that the black man should be happy. But friends, when I look around, I could see what they did was lie and mama guide me. Because presently in my birth country, still them hypocrite have access than me. Hear my plea, freedom is what we need. Freedom, not make believe. Freedom is what we need. Freedom, not make believe. Sing it, children, for the young and the old. Every boy and girl, let the message be told to the whole wide world. Baby children, some I know would never like my concept, but I wrote this song without no regret. I can see like the rest and pretending I am not conscious about what's happening. Look how much Africans now still dying. And the pagan world cigar. To the whole wide world, freedom, freedom, save the children. Nelson Mandela, a true example. For freedom is spent with years in prison. But I kill black people by millions. And government and witness no invasion. Sharon to the massacre Palestine. And government and barbarian play their time. But I know for sure they can stop your time. So my people, time to rise up and shine. Let them know what's on your mind. Freedom is what we need. Not is what we need.
DJ Soapaholic.
Freedom, not make believe. Sing it, children, for the young and the old. Every boy of you, let the message be told to the whole wide world. Freedom, freedom, save the children. The Caribbean resource for years they train. The way they exploit us in Saddam shame. Them take me coconut like banana. We upside and go to New Guyana. Trini Island also Venezuela. Them look to come out the French Empire. And the corpus of Castro say never. Look how long the goes and John and Cuba. Wake up, my brother. Freedom is what we need. Freedom, not make believe. Freedom is what we need. Freedom, not make believe. Sing it, children, for the young and the old. Every boy and girl, let the message be told to the whole wide world. Freedom, 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 save the children. For the young and the old, every boy and girl, let the message be told to the whole wide world. Freedom, 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 save the children. For the young and the old, every boy and girl,
when it's done know, this is the struggle leader, Representative Grenada, President Paul, DJ Soapaholic. He's the maddest, sickest teacher must sing.
Freedom, save the children. For the young and the old, every boy and girl, let the message be told to the whole wide world. Freedom, 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 baby children, for the young and the old, every boy and girl. Let the message be told to the whole wide world. Freedom, freedom, freedom.